I'd now like to call upon Chris Vick to talk about those all important farms, the director of the farms. Chris, we appreciate it, and you got a big plate full of things too. So
Yes.
thank you.
Well, thank you all for having me. Obviously, I started under COVID, so that was an interesting year. But I look back on that year, and it was kind of a blessing because it gave us time to focus more on the farms and just getting back to fundamentals. We didn't have meetings, we didn't have groups to go to, we didn't have contests going on and things like that. And so I've been in the position for about 20 months. I actually am a 25-year veteran of the university. So I started here in 1998 as a transfer from Shawnee Community College. And I came in the summer of 1998 to work at the University Farms. So, and I worked at the Service Center under Eldon Chapman. So I have a long history with the farms. I did that for 3 years. Then I went on to get a master's degree in plant pathology, and I worked in that field for 20 years. And so, yeah, I've had a long investment into the university, and I really appreciate the alumni and their love for the university and SIU, and I hope that we can foster that into the future. So starting with where the farms were at when I came on board, it's not an exaggeration, just about everything was broken. So our first order of business was plugging the holes in the ship. And so some of the first things that I got involved in was just fixing things. Fixing manure spreaders, fixing tractors. The first year, the first crop we put in, I had 2 or 3 tractors, and by the time I was done to the last one, and it literally saved the farm. So one of the first things we realized was we needed new equipment. Well, we don't have any money, so how do we do that? So Shane and I reached out to John Deere, S&P Nobi, and they were more than generous, and we come up with a really low lease agreement that allowed our students for the first time in the history of SIU Farms to have as good equipment as they have at home or better. And from my experience as a student worker coming on, that was not the case in 1998 or up until just a year ago or a year and a half ago. So one thing that we're really proud of is we're continuing that relationship with John Deere, and so we're trying to get a 3-year deal done so we don't have to go through the paperwork every year, which is a pain. And so for 3 years, for $70,000 a year, we're gonna get the access to $3 million worth of equipment. And that equipment will have the best of the best technology. One of the pieces of equipment that's coming is a brand new sprayer with all the bells and whistles. Every tip shuts off, you know, and I'm not even sure. The kids went to a seminar the other day, and it was just blowing me away, the technology that'll be on that sprayer. So the farms has a lot of functions. What I've realized, when I took the job, I didn't realize how big a job it was going to be, or all the things the farms are involved in. They're involved in everything. We're involved in teaching. We're we have labs. That's one of the functions of the farm. That's one of the great things about SIU. We have a farm. So students can come out and then get hands-on experience. They can touch a pig, they can touch a cow, they can give it a shot. They can do all the other things, because I have an agronomy background, so they stick their hands where they put them and all those things. But saying that, so on the teaching side, and then there's a research. We also have a mission. We are a teaching and research institution, obviously. So the farms play a very important role in research. On the plant side of the fence, we do a lot of work with NREC, and that's growing. So, and our needs are growing for more. It's interesting, the agronomy center is completely full, pretty much, of research. We've also expanded. One of the missions I had too is to turn more of our production acres on the farm into research, so we get double use of those acres. We are quickly running out of suitable land, I would say, for those things, but in the future, we're looking to reach out to other state entities that have ground that are close to us to try to obtain that land mass also for generating income, and also to piggyback research on those acres that the state owns, other than what we have here at SIU. We also are involved in recruitment. I think that the farms is one of our best recruitment tools that we have. When we compete with the CMOs and the Murray States of the world, I live next to CMO, I'm real familiar with it, and I see a lot of our kids over there, and I don't think that they were aware that we had a farm here and what its purpose was and what they could have done. The other thing is retention. I think when kids get here and they get involved in the farms, they're more likely to stay. I see Drew back in the back. You came in as a freshman, didn't you?
Yeah.
And what did you do? How you got to run a $500,000 combine?
Yeah.
As a freshman, brand new. So I think that these are unique opportunities that SIU and the farms provide that you can't find hardly anywhere else. So saying that, I'm going to quickly run through center by center and just talk about what's going on at those centers at the farm. I'm going to start with the horse center. We have about 27 horses there. We're also boarding horses, so what the chancellor thought was fascinating was that you could come to school here and bring your horse with you. So you didn't have to leave the horse at home for mom and dad to take care of it. You could bring it down here and they could pay to take care of it. So, yeah. So as the dean alluded to, money is very tight. Not only did we inherit a tight situation, we also inherited debt. So one of the functions that I've been trying to do is at least try to bring the farms to a sustainable sustainability in the financial side. So one of the things about what we were talking about the horse center is we board horses also for money. We breed horses and we sell those colts. We've been pretty successful in selling colts too. So I really believe that the horse center will break even either this year or next year. So, and that's a big deal for us. There's also an agreement with physical plant that we have now that is huge. Towards the end of Judy Marshall's reign, and before she retired, she said that we should be treated exactly as they are here on campus. So if there's a hole in the roof of this building, physical plant comes and fixes it. It hasn't always been that way at the farms. So now physical plant is picking up a lot of that we don't have to pay for, like infrastructure costs. So that's a huge deal. They're actually working at the swine center, trying to get our finisher going, the electrical, the holes, the heaters and things like that. So and then back to the horse barn, the lights were so bad in the horse barn when they were having class, they'd have to take their cell phone light. And the professor or the teacher would have to, but now they're installing all new lights in the horse barn. Another thing I'm really happy about, we got the termites killed. So, when I worked at the service center, I don't know if you guys remember the old building, maybe not the old building, but the one that was green, it was shaped like I remember every spring when it warmed up, it would come alive. And eventually it fell in. So, anyway, so those are some of the things that we're doing at the horse center, as far as improvements and being a better fiduciary of the farm's funds. Beef center, we're trying to put a lot of effort into there. As you know, the facilities were there when most of you guys were still in school. So the structure of the building isn't that bad. It's the curb appeal. So the first things we're gonna do with this donation, we got $150,000, Shane, donation from Compeer. We're gonna get paint, fix holes in the roofs, paint the roofs, redo the pins, make it where when we have students in here visiting on the recruitment side, it's something we could look at and be proud of. We will also, we have, like the dean said, we had an endowment of $100,000 for that facility, which will pay us $4,000 a year. And we hope to build on those endowments, because honestly, if we had those, we've been doing those for the last 20, 30 years, we wouldn't be in the shape that we're in. We would have those endowments to help us when the state money run out. Another thing we're working on at the Beef Center is trying to get a center manager. What I've learned is that unless you have a manager, a competent manager at these facilities, they will never thrive. So those are some of the main focuses that we have right now, is trying to figure out ways to get center managers there. We have a GA who's a graduate of the College of Ozarks, and so he came up and he's been hugely helpful in that area. We have a full-time staff person at the Swine Center now, and we are making strides there. At the Swine Center, Dr. Abgar got us a feed donation from Wean to Finish on the pigs, which is a huge, that's all your money's in that, ain't that right?
That's right.
So that's where our, but anyway, so now we're actually generating some income, and we're trying to get the Swine Center up and running where we can push as many pigs out the door as we possibly can, because everyone we do is money back towards that center. One of the biggest needs we need there is a farrowing house, I would say. We're down to 9 crates out of 20, and so we're trying to figure out, you know, how we're gonna proceed with that. Physical plant has been helping us out quite a bit there. I'm installing heaters in gestation, and they're working on the other half of our finishers. Right now we can only finish about 80, and due to iCook standards of so many per square foot. Service center, we talked about, we got the equipment donation, so now we have very good equipment. Hort Center, we're making improvements there at the greenhouse. So we talked about greenhouses. Well, this is always what everybody talks about, but all the research goes on at the greenhouse on the farms. And so we have the research greenhouse at the HRC, and we've also used the, what they call it, Tree Improvement Center, which was a USDA facility, a greenhouse that's close to there also. But those facilities have been in disrepair for 20, 30 years. The good news is physical plant, it is on a budget agreement with them, and they're slowly but surely working through that greenhouse to improve it. Like we worked on thermostats, because when I first got here, you could just set the temperature, everything, the things would open and close by themselves. Well, it's got to where our center manager there, he comes in all the time and he's opening and closing vents. So we're trying to get that automated. We're trying to get the cooling system back and working like it should. And the next big thing we have is the paint's coming out of it now, and so we've got to get folks in there to get those paints put back in place. Agronomy center, there's another hole there. We have no center manager for agronomy, which is problematic for me, because it means that I have to run the agronomy center and the farm. So that's been kind of hard, and I think I'm in a lull right now because spring's coming. I'm thinking, oh, it won't be that bad. Well, no, it's going to be terrible. But so there's some things that you know, we talk about center manager. So the biggest holes we have now are beef center, agronomy. The other one is sustainable. That's kind of one thing that I've been working on diligently this winter. Talking to as many legislators as I can, trying to corner the lieutenant governor. Trying to raise funds, because the center manager there we had some money given to us from donation, about $100,000, and that pays her salary, and we're about 14, 15 months into that, and so now we got to get a salary line figured out to make sure that she's able to stay, because without the center manager, like I said, the place will close, and we've worked really hard, and we want to keep that going. With that center, I mean, we have a store in the student center where we're proud of. So where we sell produce to students, and through the food pantry, they also give vouchers for that also, so they can get access to nutritious food. So we're trying to build on that and working with the student center. And we think that is one of the bright spots of the farm that should flourish in the environment we're in today. We're just trying to get the pieces put together. It's just taking time. We're hoping that we're working with Farm Bureau with this also, so we're hoping that we can bridge the gap until we can get some state appropriations for that center. Belleville's doing great. We got a good center manager up there. It's generating money. I really don't have any problems up there, which is fantastic. So, you know, that's one phone call I don't get every day. You know, Dane's got it under control. As far as priorities for the future, we have sustainable that we're going to keep pushing. We're going to push for center managers and more funding for the farms. At that, do we have any questions for me?
And I would like to just toss in here, you know, kind of add a little bit of what Chris is saying, but he went through some of the center managers that we need. And if we had out there at the farms, for example, and we've already gotten 300,000 in endowments this year, but if we had like a $2.5 million endowment out there at the farms, that would free up the funds that would allow us to cover these center managers, for example, the funds that kind of an endowment would generate each year. And so, you know, so this year we brought in 300,000. We're already more than 10% of the way to, you know, like a $2.5 million endowment or endowments for the farms. Every one of those, the way they generate it, takes load off the farms, because, you know, Chris has, you know, with the crops and things, he has money that he can use to hire people, but right now that money's floating other stuff.
Yes.
So that's where this idea of having a sizable endowment that would support the farms long term, that's where this is a really important idea.
Yeah, so I talked to a lot of people last night, and people from the past, the present, you know, and it's a different situation now at the farms than it was 15, 20 years ago. There was CFAR money floating around, there was overhead money floating around. If there was a deficit, we would just cover it. Well, I think the dean would attest, those days are over.
Yeah. I mean, you know, I talk to the business managers, and they tell me about days past where the deans from both the College of Agricultural Sciences and the College of Science, they both would have like 6-figure discretionary funds, you know, from the state. Right now, there is no 6-figure discretionary fund. In fact, I barely have a 5-figure discretionary fund. So it's a very, very different world on that front.
So my philosophy has been, as far as, you know, running the farms, and being a farmer myself, we want to run it more like a real farm. And based on the state appropriations that I have, will I ever be able to float the farms and pay for salaries? No, we're not designed for that. We never were. We're teaching a research institution. But can I generate enough monies? I think I can to, at some point, cover some center managers if I can get the like with the hogs and get enough cattle to float these things. So we're running it more like, I don't wanna say a business, but we're trying to be more business minded. I mean, we know that the function of our institution is teaching and research, and that's our priority. And I always stress that to the faculty too, because I don't ever wanna restrict research, I don't wanna ever restrict teaching, because then why are we here? Or our purpose is not to make money. But saying that, it would be nice if we can generate enough funds to the farms that we can cover some of these costs. Because without those salary lines coming back from the state, there's no money to do it. So we're kind of on our own and coming up with different ways and plans to make us more sustainable. And I guess that's what my goals have been, to be more sustainable. And, you know, that comes through Shane, through help, through giving, obviously, and the endowments that we hope to get, so to help our financial situation. Increased enrollment will help this also.
Yeah.
Absolutely. So I think that so far the provost has been pretty kind to us as far as the things that I needed, signing off on semi-truck trailer, some equipment, the John Deere deal. You know, we're trying to do some things with cattle, and we're hoping she approves that, because basically what I'm going to do is run the account more negative. But I hope at the end that I bring the account positive more than I run it negative. So we got to get something going. We have facilities. That's the other thing. We're not building facilities in some aspects. We have empty facilities. So I'd like to get those facilities functioning and animals in those facilities. But that takes money, and I can't go to the bank, I guess is what I'm trying to say. At home, I'd go to Farm Credit and I'd say, hey, I got this plan, you know, you guys finance. I gotta go to the university, and then they've gotta say, or go to the dean, and he's gotta go to the provost, and then they've gotta say, okay, we're gonna trust you on this. But what they don't wanna see is a bunch of more debt piled up on more debt. So, and I think we've been pretty successful here in the last, you know, couple of years. So.
And another important thing to realize with how the finances have changed for the farms over the years is that as over the last 10 years, at some point in time, as we're going through the tough economics on campus, is that it's not the current administration, previous administrations did shift some of the farm's positions off of state line dollars, and they're on the farms. I mean, Chris has to produce income off of the crops and
Right.
such, or we can't pay people. So that's a burden the farms did not carry 10 or 15 years ago.
So with high commodity prices right now over the last couple of years, and we've had average yields here on the farms, they've been okay. We'd like to improve those. This isn't a great year for inputs, and so, but luckily I was able to prepay and buy a lot of our chemicals last year, so they're sitting in the shop down there. So we have our glyphosate, we have these things in place. Working with our cooperatives, they were nice. They gave us heads up, and so we diligently worked, because basically what they said was gonna happen, happened. There isn't enough farm ground and 600 acres of farm ground to support all the financial needs that we have. We can't rely on those grain receipts every year. Like I said, I've been lucky enough to have good commodity prices and pretty good yields the last couple of years. We all know as farmers, that might not happen every year. So saying that also, we do use insurance tools to kind of protect us from any kind of downside also. I'm trying to work with the university, and that's kind of the next week's thing, is getting back with the university lawyers to make sure that I can forward contract grain. I can't even forward contract grain. And I'm looking at, $15 soybeans last week, and I should have, sold some bushels just to cover our inputs, just to be safe. I didn't want to stick our necks way out. But I always tell everybody this, I wanted to do this last year, but they actually made me a bunch of money. So, I just sold it at $4.80 and I was hauling off loads for $7, so, but I think at these prices, I think it's kind of foolish not to lock in some, to take out some risk, but, go ahead, Greg.
Got two questions for you.
Yes, sir.
Last night when Susan was engaging the crowd at the banquet, she had students stand up who were working. And it was striking to me how many kids, and I know they're not all university farms, but my first question is, how many kids are we employing? And the second one is, talking about these center managers, do people, even though we have fewer students than we once did a generation ago, and I know we've retained our status as a research university that people admire, are we still able to attract high quality people for those kinds of jobs if money was no issue?
So, first question about how many students we employ anywhere from 10 to 20 students at the farms. And those students work anywhere from 20 hours a week to 5 or 8. So, and in the summer, obviously, they'll work 37 and a half hours a week, full time. We love to have as many student workers on the farms as we possibly can. That brings in another economic situation that we're running into with the increase in the minimum wage. Where just a few years ago, I was paying $7, $8 an hour for student labor. Now I'm paying $12. So it's like everything that happens is counterintuitive to what we want to happen. I want more student involvement, but yet, as minimum wage goes to $15 an hour, it's getting tougher. But that's the importance of the day of giving, and some of the things we want to do is where people can give to help us employ more students. Or we can have, like, if it's $15 an hour, we can take out of a fund and supplement $2 an hour into their pay. Some of the alumni I talked to, they thought that was a better way than just saying, hey, we're gonna sponsor a student worker. That we would have like federal work study money where we can reduce that hourly wage. We're on the hook for 10, the donation's doing 5 or something like that. About quality of students, I think we have a really good quality of students. I'm always impressed by, I think the quality of students is better now than maybe when I was in school. I mean, honestly. And, well, there's a lot more of us here too. There's twice as many, but I see that, we're pulling those FFA presidents and officers, and I think that, we always worry because the university's like, you can just walk in, as long as you got a heartbeat, you can get into SIU right now. But as far as ag is concerned, I've been really pleased with the quality of students that we're having. And I think that'll help us too. When we get those good quality students, they're gonna go back, they're gonna tell people we're gonna get more. I'm really optimistic on enrollment. I think with the John Deere thing, with some faculty hires, with, the relationships with John A. Logan and Ren Lake. So another thing we did on the farms was, some of these colleges or junior colleges where we see a lot of people going to Murray, we see a lot of that. I brought Ren Lake down and I brought John Deere in and I gave a whole day seminar, over the John Deere equipment and the technology on that equipment. And it was so successful. I was worried about it. So on Friday, they're young people. After it was over, they stuck around and watched us switch the combine over to corn for the day. I mean, it's like they didn't want to go home. And I was really surprised. They really enjoyed it. And I think if we can do more of that stuff, I think that's gonna bring in more kids here also. Another thing we did the teachers. What was that, Susan, where we got all the ag teachers?
So, and I'll talk about some of this a little bit later.
Okay, I don't wanna steal your thunder.
Yeah, we did host the Illinois Ag Vocational, the IAVAT Teachers Conference last year here on campus, 3 days after the mask mandate COVID restrictions were lifted. But yeah, we'll talk about how awesome that was.
So we had ag teachers here, and John Deere was once again. I tell you what, the people, the professionals that John Deere sent were fantastic. I mean, they were good with the kids, they got them engaged, and so I was really impressed with that, and I was really proud of them and what occurred there. So,
John Deere, they view this partnership as a way for SNN to recruit people also.
Yes.
Because we have students doing things that they need, they want, and so, yeah, they're helping us out quite a bit, but it's reciprocal, we can help them too.
And it is a marketing tool for them, because if you learn on green, what are you gonna buy when you go home?
yes, sir.
You've hit on Nobi and Deere quite a bit, corporate sponsorship. I won't say thinking out of the box, but corporate sponsorship. In years past, way back, we had some collaboration with outside vendors. You go through the various centers, Beef Center, Swine Center, or is the Beef Center looking for an automated bunk? I don't know. How hard have we pushed, or is the potential there for corporate ag to endow or sponsor programs down here? Has that envelope really been pushed?
We're starting that envelope. We're at least opening it some. That's what me and Shane's been talking and working about. We're trying to get to these. So at the university, we deal with either sales reps sometimes or R&D people, which is good for research. R&Ds, we do a lot of contract research here with every company, especially on the plant side. I work with every company. We probably help them develop every seed treatment, every fungicide that farmers are using today. A lot of that work was done at SIU. Like BASF, all their trade pamphlets and all their information and slideshows were based out of work we did at Carmine. So those kind of corporate things. But what we need to do, and me and Shane's talked about, we got to get to the corporate side of ADM and go up the ladder. These aren't the people, we have these contacts, we need to get to the upper contacts. You understand what I'm saying?
Yeah.
So that's kind of what we want. I want to work with the foundation to do, is get to these upper level corporate folks that have the billions of dollars in their pockets. As far as upgrading some of the feed bunks, one of the great examples will be our bull test sale. And help me, I always say that, I always call it cannulated, but it's not. Those gates, what are they called? Yeah, they were put in 1973. Okay, and you got to put the feed, you got to weigh the feed in, you got to weigh the feed out. It's crazy. So Dr. J, our new beef professor, we've already priced and looking at a whole new automated system for that, and it's not that expensive in my mind to do that. Where they have now, you just feed them, and each cow, you can calculate each cow whatever they eat, the poundage. It just makes sense. And then also, what we can do on top of that, as far as research is concerned, we can put methane detectors in there and start doing some work on methane reduction. So yes, the answer is yes. We're just getting there. So
Thank you.
When-
That's what I was looking for.
When I arrived, one of the things that actually surprised me when I arrived we did not have any dedicated endowments for the farm. You know, and we didn't have those kinds of industry linked to the farm, so we're working on those kinds of things right now.
Okay.
Do you have to promise exclusivity or something like that with these companies as they come in? Or are they open to, like, you know, would Deere
No.
open a?
So, I'll give you a great,
competition back?
good example. So, Syngenta's been a huge helper with us at the farms, a partner. Even on the research side, Syngenta Corp has probably gave us millions of dollars in research funding to different PIs. And, you know, with my contacts in there and my relationships, they were starting to donate seed and chemicals to the farms. What I'd really like to see, like ISU, I'm pretty sure every seed and chemicals donated to the ISU farm, where I'm having to buy these things. So I'm trying to slowly but surely get, you know, okay, so Syngenta, they're already helping us. Will Pioneer Beck's help us? But that's the other thing too, I can't talk to salesmen because their business is selling me stuff. And when they talk to them about that, they're like, well, when I give you anything free, I'm not making any money. But I gotta go up the ladder and say, and work with these corporate. But we've had a long relationship. Monsanto was really helpful in supporting. Like, agronomy center on the small scale, not the whole farm, all the seed chemicals are donated for that center. We don't buy seed and chemical for the agronomy center, or Belleville for that matter. So I'd like to expand that out to the whole farm. Another thing, that we got going on with Syngenta this year is Dow. We have 100 acres up by DeQuoin, the King Farm. It was donated to us. But that money, it all goes to scholarships and foundations. So we're basically custom farming that area. But Syngenta's gonna do a big demo plot up there. They're gonna take 40 acres and supply all the seed and chemical for 40 acres up there. So that's gonna be a huge help to the scholarship fund. I mean, there's a whole nother scholarship just right there out of the King Farm. So, yeah, so the answer is yeah, we're trying.
That was the avenue I was looking, or the route I was looking for, and it's a recruitment tool for them also. For you guys over there that are looking for a job, if Syngenta or Bayer or whoever, Deere, Case IH, if they support a program down here, somebody's looking for a job after they get out of school in agribusiness.
The reason we sought a 3-year deal with John Deere was because due to procurement, and also when we're taking data, these researchers, that was the whole key to this thing, where I have watershed for NREC on and all these things going on, and they need to pull all this data. Well, if I'm jumping from Case IH software to John Deere, it just doesn't work. You know what I'm saying? So that's kind of why we'd like to shore that up for a research side of things, that we know we have a certain software, this is how it's gonna work. We're not learning and switching every other year and moving this data back and forth that you're gonna lose. So it's kind of tough. It's not that we're favoring anyone, it's more about pragmatism than it is anything else, so.
Consistency.
Chris, in defense, we did have a partnership before S&P. We did have an agreement with Case IH, but we had a turnover in personnel with that company, and I think that caused some problems, and then this deal opened up. So I don't want anybody to think that we didn't give both sides or different colors here a chance, but
Yeah, we did. We did.
yeah.
Any other questions?
Okay,
All right.
Chris, thank you very much.
Thank you.
I think when I worked on the farm, I got $1.25 an hour, so whatever. That's back when a car cost $500.